Robertson.
Mr. Speaker, kia ora tātou no reira te whare, inga iwi, inga rio, inga hawe tēnā koutou katoa, mātua Rick Barker, haere rā. Mr. Speaker, when I first read the Prime Minister's speech, I thought, is this the best the government can do? Surely not, I said. But I'm still waiting to find anything of substance in a speech from the Prime Minister. Where is the leadership? Where is the leadership that's required to motivate and inspire New Zealanders to effort? Not on that side of the House, Mr. Speaker. And I rang around some business contacts who said, is that it? Is that it? Prime Minister, tax is not a silver bullet. And I just want to say to the Honourable Member Todd McCrae, who preceded me, that Steve Chadwick is out there knocking on the doors now. She's out there knocking on the doors. She's acknowledged her candidacy for 2011 and she's going to fight it tooth and nail. And while that member has to stay inside the House here, we'll have our candidate out there wrestling the seat back for the Labour Party. And we're going to give her all the support that we can. Mr. Speaker, with this Prime Minister's speech, we have a half-hearted effort. It's shrouded in uncertainty until we see the budget, and the speech is full of sound and fury signifying nothing. And it's time that the Prime Minister delivered on his promise to lift our country's performance. And I believe, as do my Labour colleagues, Mr. Speaker, that Alan Ballard is right when he said that the Prime Minister has overpromised and he can't deliver. Mr. Speaker, while we have had the Prime Minister's statement to Parliament, I want to acknowledge the speech of the Honourable Phil Goff. His speech in Hamilton to the nation resonated with the many and not the few, whereas the Prime Minister's speech panders to the few while ignoring the many. It's a speech of a smiling Muldoon. I remember him well. Mr. Speaker, GST, the major initiative unleashed by the Prime Minister, is a regressive tax, taking more as a percentage of earnings from the low pay than it does from those with more discretionary income. And let me just give you an example. If you take home $200 a week, Mr. Speaker, and your grocery bill is $100, this currently includes a GST component of $12.50. So you pay 6.25% of your take-home pay in GST. But if you take home $1,000 a week and your grocery bill is $100, that $12.50 in GST is only 1.25% of your take-home pay. Therefore, the less you earn, the greater the percentage you pay. And personally, Mr. Speaker, I would prefer to live in a country that prioritised looking after the many, not the few. Mr. Speaker, what it means is that those who are most vulnerable in our society, those who are on fixed incomes, and I stand here as the opposition spokesperson for the elderly, the majority who are on fixed incomes, they will be greatly disadvantaged by the implementation of GST. Not only that, but they will lose their purchasing power while they're waiting for a catch-up. And I've been inundated with calls from constituents about the impacts of GST on their standard of living. And why, Mr. Speaker, why should they trust this government's word and its rhetoric when the Prime Minister promised not once, not twice, but 3 times not to raise GST? He can use all the weasel words he likes here in Parliament to deny it. All the weasel words he likes to deny it, Mr. Chairman. But the people know differently. The people know differently, especially the elderly, And they are the reason I stand here speaking up for them. And I have that seniors portfolio. It's a challenging one, Mr. Speaker, but I enjoy it. And I've been inundated from calls around the country. And I intend to hold this government to account. What the point is, Mr. Garrett, about GST is that it's a regressive tax. So those at the bottom are paying a greater percentage of their income than those who are earning much more. And as a result of this Prime Minister's statement to the House, what we see is that the elderly will continue to suffer under this regime. And to date, there have been a number of changes that have affected senior citizens. There's been the issue of the home support on the Kapiti Coast. And we've heard how the District Health Board has been ringing people, asking whether they're okay, and when they say they are, they cut the number of hours that they're entitled to. There's been the Safe with Age driving program implemented in the South Island, which is being changed and cut. There's been senior citizens' access to student loans and allowances. Mr. Speaker, these things have all been cut. And my Labor colleagues and I have been vocal in opposing cuts to health, ACC, adult education, and drawing attention to the axing of the Safe with Age driving courses and speaking out against the freezing of the contributions to the super fund. We also oppose the recommendation of the tax working group to increase GST to 15%, a policy that we know will hit our elderly citizens particularly hard. And I can tell, and let me just say to the member on behalf of seniors that during my regular visits to grey power around the country, I've been alarmed to learn of instances of a general lack of care and empathy for some of our most vulnerable seniors, including one District Health Board informing and gathering information via telephone to justify cutting back, Mr. Speaker, home support hours, and others that are discharging patients from emergency wards, from the accident emergency departments late at night without considering whether these people have the necessary resources to get themselves home. Mr. Speaker, the honeymoon, I can say to this government, can't go on forever. And when the gloss comes off, we will be waiting. And thank goodness we have a democracy in this country. And I want at this stage to acknowledge all of those who have fought and those who have died that we might have that privilege. And I look at the plaques around the room, Mr. Speaker. We start over here with Malaysia, Vietnam, Korea, Casino, Pacific, Al Alamein, Crete, Fortress Europe, River Plate, South Africa, Atlantic, just to name a few, Mr. Speaker. And these people, Mr. Speaker, did what they did in order that we might have a democracy here, that we might have change. And, Mr. Speaker, change will come again because more and more people are recognising that this government is not delivering what it promised. Alan Bollard made it quite specific last week when he said that we would not be able to achieve what the Prime Minister had set out to do. He fronted up. He told the people of this country that you can't believe everything you hear from the Prime Minister. And, sir, we will continue, as Her Majesty's loyal opposition, to hold this government to account. Because the statement read to this House by this Prime Minister is lacking, sir, in vision, it's lacking in commitment and dedication, and it's holding us, all of us, up in the air like this, and we have to wait and see what's in the budget. Leadership, Mr. Speaker, is about motivation. It's about inspiring others to follow. And to date, that hasn't happened. Let me say to the people of New Zealand, to the senior citizens that I represent, kia kaha, stand tall. The elderly are not to be taken for granted. And we on this side of the House will continue to speak up for them. Tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā tātou katoa, Mr. Speaker.